All right, we're back at it again with round 3 of 6 of Godzilla versus the Marvel Universe, and we're moving on now to probably one of the more anticipated issues, Godzilla versus Spider-Man. And I'm here once again with my good friend Matt Dennion.
Hey everybody, glad to be back as always.
Yeah, so Matt has been able to be a part of the next review, and yeah. So Matt, what did you think of Godzilla versus Spider-Man?
Well, you and I might be on different ends of this. I really enjoyed it, honestly. I really did. And you?
I I didn't.
Let's go ahead. Different opinions is a good thing. So let's go over what we liked and what we didn't like. Why don't you go first this time, like I always do?
Well, my problem is that like, I understand that the joke is it doesn't take itself too seriously, but like, one of my problems is that the writing in here feels like it's so mean-spirited to that era of it, because it's supposed to be Spider-Man, like 80s era Spider-Man, like Dave Michelinie, Todd McFarlane era Spider-Man, one of the more celebrated eras of Spider-Man.
Sure.
And it's just so fucking mean-spirited to that era. And on top of that, you have Nick Lowe, the most accursed man in like Spider-Man, in the editing room, chiming in like it's a fun joke every 5 seconds, like ever loving Nick or Nick knows everything. I'm like, shut the fuck up, Lowe. Like the fact of the matter is that Nick Lowe is responsible for like a 80 to like 90% of what's wrong with Spider-Man editorial and Spider-Man comics to this day. So to have his ass chiming in like a fun joke, even though he is like, we know for a fact he does not care for this era of Spider-Man or any, like, a lot of eras of Spider-Man, is kind of fucking insulting, if you ask me.
Okay.
I also will say that I will say that for positives, I think how they managed to do Spider-Man fighting Godzilla is a pretty smart idea of utilizing that Peter is, like, he already knows he's fighting a giant lizard. He already knows he can't win, so he fights smart, and they actually utilize Peter's intelligence. I will also say that we'll get to the big thing that everyone knew this comic to be, and I will say it was kind of worth the hype, but it wasn't as long as we thought it would be. And on top of that, the other positive I will say is Nick Bradshaw is a hell of an artist.
Yes, yeah.
It actually reminds me a lot of Art Adams, one of my favorite artists, Arthur Adams' artwork.
Yes, I thought the same thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which kind of sucks because I kind of wish he was doing the artwork for one of these books.
Yeah, that would be amazing if Art Adams could do it. He's always been, going back to his Dark Horse days, one of the fan favorites in the Godzilla comic realm, for sure.
Yeah, so I think the fight was good, but honestly, like, just the trashing of arguably one of my favorite eras of Spider-Man, and just making it a joke, kind of just irked me. And I know Joe Casey's a solid writer, but this is more of it just kind of feels like no one wanted to do this.
Okay.
That's the feeling I'm getting, is that no one wanted to do this book.
Okay.
Is it awful? Is it as bad or as annoying as Godzilla vs. Hulk? Well, they actually live up to Godzilla fighting Spider-Man. We get that.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm sure we'll go into it, have differing opinions. But, Matt, what did you think, bro?
I liked it. And looking at what you had said, to be fair, I had really kind of given up on Spider-Man because it had been so bad. So I wasn't looking at it through the same scope as you were, with like Nick being like jumping on the series. I thought it was more tongue in cheek. So, but again, I don't have the perspective that you do on that. So that could be where the difference was coming in at. So from my perspective, I took it as like a little fun commentary to how 80s Spider-Man was written, which is really my wheelhouse because, I'm older. So that's, I really grew up with that Todd McFarlane era Spider-Man of like the 80s and stuff. So in that respect, I did like it. I like the humor in it because I do like Spider-Man when he's humorous. I thought they, like you said, paid off on Godzilla actually interacting and fighting with I enjoyed that, again, a little tongue-in-cheek for sure, but that they tied in Peter's troubles, like in particular his love life, with kind of this weird triangle between himself and Mary Jane and Black Cat. I thought that was kind of neat, because again, that would have been that time frame. He got back from the first Secret Wars where he's still like, Black Cat is like the really fun girl that you don't want to take home necessarily, and Mary Jane is the obviously the love of his life going forward. So I thought that was like an interesting time for Peter, and I've certainly been there myself in life at some point, so I can relate. Then I actually liked the way Godzilla was both drawn and handled for a couple different reasons. One is they didn't overtly say it, but there certainly seems to be written in the vein of the Heisei Godzilla. Which is where I think that Art Adams look comes in, because Art Adams was drawing Godzilla at from the kind of middle to the end of the Heisei era.
Yeah, he definitely, I think his wheelhouse was Heisei. Like, he made the best looking Heisei Godzilla.
Yes.
Bradshaw, Nick Bradshaw in here, I think he very much is inspired by Art Adams. I also will say that his Godzilla does have a longer neck.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, and I know it's like someone's going to say, oh, well, why does that matter? Because I'm like, Godzilla's usually just has like a stout, short neck. This one looks like, in some cases, he looks like he has like a sauropod neck.
No, that's not unfair. But I did like, they didn't overtly say this, about why Godzilla came to Manhattan. But I felt like it was suggested that he came there because he sensed the alien threat in the symbiote, which is something that Heisei Godzilla would have done. Anytime there was like another monster who was in what he would have considered his territory, he was definitely going in to kick their ass and send them on their merry way. Which is why I think he was particularly drawn to Spider-Man. In particular, even they kind of did have some things obviously just were there to fill the role. Like Mary Jane shows up and goes to Peter's apartment, so he has to save her. But it makes sense. Why is Godzilla targeting that particular apartment? Because he can sense that that's where this alien threat has been housing itself, perhaps.
Yeah. Now, it's also interesting to note that this does take like an alternate take, because we do get that moment where Mary Jane reveals, yeah, I know it's you, Peter. And that does happen in when Peter had the symbiote suit post-Secret Wars. But that happened later. And that moment where her and Black Cat meet each other, it's handled and maybe because, again, that was one of the first comics I ever read was Spider-Man in the black suit. And that moment was pretty emotional of Mary Jane revealing her past and everything else, and knowing that Peter was Spider-Man since she was a kid. And then Black Cat and Felicia comes busting in, and Mary Jane has this whole breakdown, and it's a great moment where Peter's like please don't go, as she's running out the door. And following that is a moment where Felicia is about to leave too, because she's like, ooh, this is weird. And the symbiote reaches out and grabs her, and she's like, oh, you picked me. And Peter has this look of, I fucked up. So again, it's just kind of it's just that era of Spider-Man is really close to home for me. So to have it kind of treated as one big obvious joke, because don't you get it? Don't you love it? The editors don't like these characters together, and yet we have them together. Isn't that kooky? Get fucked.
Okay, fair. Again, I wasn't thinking about it from that perspective. So I was looking at it as it's a rehashing of that scene, but it would make sense if that scene had occurred and Godzilla did show up. And in my opinion, it'd be okay, this is obviously a big personal moment, but Godzilla's out there. It's Spider-Man. I got to go deal with it. So that's how I took it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just agreeing with you, man.
Okay. I was going to say too, as we build through the story, around that time, another thing that stuck out to me, because this was very unclear before, is that this does take place in the same canon as Godzilla vs. Hulk, because Spider-Man specifically references it. Now, he makes the mistake of saying that they battled, which they didn't, but he references that comic, which I thought was interesting. So you weren't sure from Fantastic Four to Hulk if these were standalones or in the same shared universe.
Yeah, which is also confusing because, Iron Man is in the Avengers storyline. Clearly, we see Iron Man right there, but they've said in the Hulk book, Tony's dead.
So it could be Rhodes, because he was Iron Man in the early 80s, don't forget.
Yeah, but when we get to they clearly say Stark in the versus Hulk. But then in Godzilla, we clearly see Iron Man in Godzilla versus Avengers, which that's going to be set in the Millennium Era.
Right, but my contention would be we don't know yet. In this alternate reality, Tony Stark could still be dead, and that could be Rhodes in that outfit at the time.
Yeah, or maybe it's just like a Tony that put his consciousness in an Iron Man suit. Who the fuck knows?
Exactly. Yeah, there could be other things to it. But I thought that was interesting because the step after that led me to change some previous notions I had about the upcoming Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe. So we can say now, I think obviously everybody's figured it out, that there comes a point where Godzilla roars, and because his roar is so loud, it knocks the suit off of Peter, who to this point hasn't realized it's the symbiote. And then the symbiote, of course, goes on to Godzilla. And like that was cool. We all want to see. One thing I thought was interesting about that is in the previous artwork we've kind of seen like Venomized Godzilla with the spider across his chest, but in this instance they took the -1 insignia and made that across the center of his chest, which I thought was kind of a neat nod.
Which I will say that the Venomzilla did live up to the payoff. Like, yes. I think also the other thing, again, going back to Bradshaw's artwork, which I think is a massive saving grace to this story for me. He made it look good. Like a lesser artist would have fucked that up. Like Romita Jr.'s Cosmic Godzilla looked bad. Hulkzilla looked bad.
Yes.
This, thank Christ that they didn't F this up, and I would kind of want a Bandai Movie Monster figure of this.
Hell yeah. And this is the other interesting part, and I really want to pick your brain about this, is specifically as Godzilla is covered in this symbiote, it's trying to fight him for basically control the same way it would Peter, right? And Godzilla becomes aware of the King in Black, and they specifically show the King in Black and talk about how it's the type of thing Godzilla would go against. And that made me think. They mentioned specifically in the teaser for Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe that will get Godzilla taking on the Dark Dimension. And I'm sure we all really thought Dormammu. But then, since this does seem to be a continuing canon at this point, I thought, did they mean the King in Black? Because I guess that could also be looked at as the Dark Dimension.
Well, I think it is still Dormammu, right. because Null is trapped in Clintar, which is a prison. He wasn't in a dark dimension. The symbiotes turned against him and sealed him literally in a planet-sized prison. So it's not.
I think it's a long shot, that hypothesis. It just crossed my mind as a possibility.
Oh no, I'm not saying you're wrong. Yeah. I'm not saying
you're
wrong, Matt. I think we could. There's still a chance of Godzilla versus Null in there. I'm just just for clarification, No,
thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Venomzilla looked definitely awesome. It also, what I also appreciate, or actually what I will appreciate, is that again we go back to Peter is like a scientist. He's working this shit out. I will say that using Shocker's gauntlets, I don't know how powerful. I don't think Herman Schultz's gauntlets could bust the symbiote off of Godzilla that power, but sure, because it felt like a frantic. That was another thing I had a knock against it, is that it was a frantic race to the end.
No, that's totally fair. Which again, you kind of get when you're stuck in this one, Josh. But that's a fair criticism. I was going to say one thing I did like as well about the Venom Godzilla is I thought, and I'm wondering if you other fans saw this too, that it looked like they kind of had to take on more of the look of the Singular Point Godzilla Ultima, more hunched over when he took on the Venom pose in that.
I actually had that thought. I was like, it's not me, right? I clearly see Singular Point in the design.
Yeah, good. I'm glad it wasn't just me who thought that. So I thought that was a neat nod. And then, you said Spider-Man. He had fought Shocker earlier in the comic. He kind of takes Shocker's. Sorry, there's a freaking motorcycle that drove past me. Takes Shocker's gauntlets and uses it to get the symbiote off of Godzilla. And then the symbiote maintains a kaiju size to fight Godzilla, which I enjoyed because it immediately took me back, also after having just seen The King in Black, to the Planet of the Symbiotes series, and we had that great issue where we had American Kaiju fighting kind of like a Ghidorah symbiote type of thing, which I thought was a fun nod in that respect.
Yeah, like it was a cool scene. I wish it lasted a little longer. Again, that's not, I wouldn't say that's a problem with the comic. I think it's just the curse of a one shot. I do wish they made them a little bigger. I do wish they gave them a little more page count with these comics. I think the story is just kind of just not good for me. And I'm not saying if you like this book, especially not saying it to Matt and anyone watching this review, is that just because I didn't like it and you liked it, I'm not saying fuck you. I just personally did not care for it.
No, which is fine. So I mean, to cut you off, but I know anytime you and I do a review, and I'll speak for myself, but I think I can say this for you as well, is like you just said, we are always pleased if we didn't care for something and other people did, and it doesn't mean that we don't value their opinion. It's just not for one person and it is for another, right? Yeah,
it just was. This comic was not for me. And my other friend, Chris, Mount Vernon Kid, he loved this book. This was his favorite of the trilogy so far. And I was like, I was like really hyped because you and Chris had great recommendations for it. And then I read it and I'm like, did we read the same book?
It seems like to be the case. Did you like the stinger at the end?
The God Venom. That was pretty cool. I will admit that's another one I was like, I kind of want a McFarlane figure of that.
Yes, yeah. And I wonder if that won't carry into future stories as well, since this seems to be canon now.
Yeah, this whole God Venom thing. I'm curious, and it's also kind of weird because again, this Venom symbiote was always kind of like it's always treated like a, jilted lover. So to have it be like it's forcing itself on Eddie was a little weird.
Yeah, true. Mm-hmm.
So, but I gotta admit, it's a cool design, and that's what. And I know what what someone's like, oh, it's just a cool design. You like it? Yeah, because Venom started out as a cool design, and that's literally McFarlane's whole thing was, oh, it's just a cool design.
Yeah, for sure. That's how it started, and obviously didn't have enough page count for this, but I would have liked to have seen if something had happened. Godzilla had done something that Eddie took personally, so then as he became Venom, he hated both Peter and Godzilla, as to where it came from before, as opposed to just Peter. And he may in the future, again, I will agree with you, the short page count definitely didn't help that out, and I can definitely see where your perspective is coming from, because I didn't come to it, because again, I detached from Spider-Man years ago, because it used to be my number one read, freaking love Spider-Man, and then, we got to, like many fans with, One More Day or whatever, and I was like, screw this, I'm done, and then it's kind of went downhill. So for me, it was nice to dive back in and get what I found to be yes, tongue-in-cheek, but a throwback story that I enjoyed, but I can see what you're saying at the same point where it's just piling on the egregious issues that have been issued before from your perspective.
Yeah, I still say for me personally, the Fantastic Four is my favorite of these three so far, but we've got three more. That was an interesting sound. I will say that of the last three remaining, I think the one I'm excited the most for is Godzilla versus Thor. Just to have Jason Aaron back on Thor and to see him fight GMK Godzilla.
Yes, that'll be pretty cool.
Of the three, which one are you most excited for? The three remaining.
For me, it's a toss-up between Thor and X-Men, because it looks like this will be in that early '90s wheelhouse X-Men, that Jim Lee X-Men, or God heaven forbid, the small amount of time it was Chris Claremont and Jim Lee. That would be fantastic. Yeah,
I can't remember who's the writer for the X-Men one. Because I know it's Walker for Avengers and Aaron, obviously, for... I think it's Fabian Nicieza, if I'm not mistaken.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think he's good. I think Nicieza is a solid X-Men writer, so...
Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully he knows Godzilla. That's it.
Yeah. Then again, Duggan was always a solid Hulk writer, and Casey's always been solid on Spider-Man, and... Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But anyway, two different perspectives on this. So, Tyler, this would be a really interesting video, hopefully, for the people listening to put their thoughts in on this comic, right?
Yeah. I know it's been a lot of glowing recommendation for this Godzilla for this particular issue, but I was kind of reading and I was like, it's just not. I'm not clicking with it for several reasons. I think actually giving us Spider-Man fighting Godzilla is pretty cool, and utilizing how Spider-Man would combat this threat and using his brains, which thank God some writer is using Spider-Man as a scientist, is a fucking thing. It's but between everything else of like the MJ and Felicia stuff, and also Niccolo chiming in and thinking it was funny. It wasn't funny the first time. Just the whole remember this, remember that, ever loving Niccolo. Fuck off, Nick. No one likes you. No, you are literally the actually kid that everyone says don't come near me at the party. Get no one fucking who thought you like Nick did Niccolo really think like chiming in every 5 minutes just for this when we know you are a massive problem for current Spider-Man comics? It's not just Nick, I know. It's Marvel and it's Marvel CEOs in general, like others like Braveheart and fucking Loeb and others. Yeah. I'm well aware of that, but Nick, you are at bare minimum, if I'm being honest, you are a majority of that problem. You and the rest of Spider-Man editorial, and to have you chiming in with these fucking stupid jokes for an era of Spider-Man that was way beyond anything we've read in the past 5 years, fuck off.
That is fair, because even without that perspective, I thought like after like the third time in, it was getting like, okay, this is a little much at this point. Yeah, for sure.
But I will say, fight's good. I think Nick Bradshaw's artwork definitely carries it. I would love to see him do an IDW Godzilla book.
Yes. Again, he had that Art Adams feel to it. I would really like to see him do an IDW Godzilla book at this point. Yeah,
I would love to see how he would draw. Honestly, of all the kaiju, I want to see how he'd draw Kiryu, like Mechagodzilla 3.
That would be cool. I'd be in for that. Quick question, because I know we have to wrap this one up. Do you think we will get any figures from this line? Because we did some from the DC one.
I think it's a pretty solid bet, because I know like Marvel and Toho probably looked at the McFarlane toys for the Godzilla Monsterverse figures. But I will say that's probably going to be up to like who's going to do it. Is it going to be Hasbro or is it going to be Bandai?
Ugh. Let's
because like again like
paying a ton of tariffs for
but and like I know what you're probably saying, like, oh, we could just go to McFarlane. Yeah, McFarlane's got a exclusive deal with DC, and also that's under those Monsterverse characters are under Warner Brothers and don't need a lot of oversight from Toho. So that's how they can get those figures out so fast. Hasbro and Bandai, it's not like they're not under the same. Disney and Toho are not under the same umbrella. So the toy rights are going to be up in the air for that one. I would hope maybe we can get lucky and no one gets it because it could go under Oh, Jesus.
Oh, yeah, that's...
Oh, that was your door?
That was the door, yes.
Okay, I was like, did you just get attacked by a parrot?
No, it was the door. I was letting my dog out, I'm sorry.
Like I was saying, I maybe no one can get it because maybe it'll go under Mondo. Like, yeah, Mondo can come out with a figure like those cool Aztec Godzilla designs that will cost you like an entire credit score.
They could. If it was reasonably priced from Hasbro or Bandai, I would definitely pick up the Venomized Godzilla and probably the God Venom figure, like you had said. I wasn't overly impressed with the hulked out Godzilla, and freaking the Silver Surfer Godzilla just looked like a badly drawn Godzilla. But this one I would get if it looks similar to the way it was portrayed in the comic. Yeah, absolutely. So there you go, guys. That is pretty much our review of Godzilla vs. Spider-Man. I personally didn't care for it. Matt loved it, so I'm curious to see what everyone else's consensus is on this book. Maybe I'm the odd one out. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. But I'm always curious to see what you guys have to say. But other than that, Matt, thank you so much for dropping in for this review. Yeah, thank you for having me as always. Always a pleasure doing these. Yeah. And, other than that, I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.